The camera I'm talking about today is the Iloca from the 1950, the Iloca Rapid B. Now, normally a rapid on a camera would indicate the type of cartridge. A rapid cartridge was developed by Agfa, and it was slightly different design to the conventional 35mm cassette. And when I first saw this camera, I assumed it was of that system. But the rapid on the name actually refers to the ease of winding the film on. And this camera, at first sight, I thought was very normal. And it is a moderately normal 35mm camera from the 1950s. But then I asked the guy who had the camera stand, how do you open the camera? Because I looked and I couldn't see anything. And he said, oh, I can't remember. It's odd. It is odd. And we're going to start with how to open this camera, because you need to bring the shutter, this part here, not the shutter, the rewind, all the way up, and you need to bring the rewind over right there. Then you move that and it opens. And the odd thing about the back as well, so we've opened the back and the whole back actually comes off. Okay, and as you can see, actually inside very conventional, filming there, load there. Now normally the wind on will be here, but on this camera it's on my left hand side. And actually, as you're using the camera, believe it or not, that makes it very easy to use. So let's put the back of the camera back. Again, putting it back, you must make sure it's clipped open, then bring that down. A slightly unusual feature is this back, which comes completely off. Right, focusing is moderately straightforward. It's this lever here, which you can see is taking the lens in, and we have a very clear focus range. The aperture is here, and the shutter speeds are actually on the front of the camera here. Okay, and we have from 300th of a second time down to bulb. So to use, it's a rangefinder. So again, I've got this double image, and it's a coupled rangefinder, which is excellent. So that's in focus there. Then I set my aperture and my shutter speed. So let's assume I'm in the bright outdoors. So I can set 1 to 100th of a second and an aperture of f16. So I take my image and wind on. Now, the reason that's not going back completely now is because it wants a film in order that it winds on. If I was to trick it into thinking I've got a film in, you will see that clicks back like that. Now, I had an issue with this camera. Not only was it confusing how to open the camera, but when I finished the film, I thought, how do I wind it back? Because I brought this up and then it kept wanting to open the camera, and I thought, that's not right. So what you actually have to do to wind the film back, you bring it up to this level here, press the clutch down here, and that will then wind back the film. Not the most straightforward camera. Once you've got it opened, it's quite nice to use, and once you've figured out how to wind back the film, it's fine. But those were two puzzles, but it's quite nice to be faced with a puzzle with a camera. And what did we do without the internet? Well, we struggled, to be honest. We used to have to ring people up to ask them about cameras, and we couldn't work it out ourselves. But slightly different camera, interesting camera to use. But what were the results like? I did have a few issues with this camera, as I said, and the film I used was a No Jessup's film, so it was a slightly out of date black and white film, But it was a bright December day when I went to the little village of Morton in Dorset, which is the home of the Frampton family, and it's a really pretty village. And this camera performed absolutely fine. As I said, to use it's actually quite nice. The lens is absolutely fine, the shutter is fine, it has a bit of a classic feel with it, and the rangefinder, for a camera which is over 50, nearly 60 years old, the rangefinder worked very well, and it was easy to focus. The village of Morton is home to the grave of T.E. Shaw, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, and here we have the little cemetery at Morton and the grave of T.E. Lawrence. Again, as I said, it was a bright December morning when I went down there with the camera, quite cold. The viewfinder is very clear, the rangefinder works fine, the aperture was a little bit on the stiff side. I wasn't completely convinced that all the shutter speeds were accurate. I felt that some of the shots were slightly overexposed, or even underexposed in some cases, and because I had the problem trying to wind back the film, I did almost open the back once or twice. So it was an interesting camera to use, but now I know how to open the back, I will probably have another go. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.